The Wellness Entrepreneur, episode 57, recorded while the kids' holiday cookies are baking with a delicious mix of choc chips, dried apricots, and popping candy.
Starting an online business can be a lonely ride, especially when you're trying to change the world one day at a time. But you're home now, in a place where inspiration flows thick and fast, and we arm you with the how-tos to get started, grow, and thrive in business. Welcome to the Wellness Entrepreneur Podcast with business coach and trainer Katie Wyatt. The mission of the show is to simplify online business so you can focus on your mission rather than your marketing, because it doesn't have to be that hard. Let's leverage your time so you can have more impact and amplify your message. You are a change maker. We need you loud and clear. Wellness entrepreneurs. Passion can change the world and make good business.
Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for joining me today and every day. I'm pumped for the feedback I had on the last episode, Are You Playing Small? And I'm super pleased to tell you that, drum roll, in the next month or so, the show will be a-changin', just like the times. So what's ahead? A new name, a name that reflects, I hope, everything that I'm about: business, changing the game, taking action, and the power of podcasting to amplify our online presence, brand, and message. So excited. A new format. So you will hear more from me on things that will help you move forward in your business, take inspired action, and stand out in the crowd. I'll be doing special spotlight interviews with podcasting entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs who are standing out from the crowd in their industry. I still will interview wellness entrepreneurs because, well, there's so many awesome ones out there, and I have some very cool interviews coming up. And I also have a super special summer series coming up after Christmas. So much going on. I'm so excited. I hope you'll stay for the ride because this show is all about you. You're why I show up here every episode, and I hope that we can keep showing up for each other. Now, if you haven't joined the Facebook group, please pop over. It's at bit.ly/start grow thrive, or you can find it through the menu on my website, and let me know that you're a listener. There's more than 1,400 entrepreneurs in there asking questions, offering advice, and having a lot of laughs and giving heaps of non-spammy support. And they're making sales. They're selling things, programs and coaching and products to each other because we have lots of each other's target market in there. The only thing missing is you. You can also find the group via the menu on my homepage, as I said, at katiewyatt.me. And in just a couple of weeks, I'm going to be up in Queensland for 2 epic events. Can I tell you about them? So 6th to the 8th of October, I'll be part of the We Are Podcast Conference. I'm part of a social media panel on Saturday the 8th, and also talking about how to use Facebook groups to convert more leads from your podcast. The conference lineup is awesome, with some brilliant podcasting guests from overseas and homegrown right here in Oz. So you can totally drool over the program at wearepodcast.com and get 25% off tickets if you use this link, bit.ly/WAPKT25. After We Are Podcast, I'll be heading to Brisbane, where Biz Bestie Elle Roberts and I are putting on afternoon tea and doing a live recording of our podcast, Lady Boss Chats. There will be live Q&A, and I'm sure it will be a riot, bringing together the structured Virgo, that is me, and let's just roll with it, Elle. So it's guaranteed to be good coffee, good company, good food, and good laughs. Oh, and good chats, of course. Grab your tickets at bit.ly/ladybossbriz. Righto, let's get into it. Today I'm interviewing Mr. We Are podcast himself, Ronsley Vaz. Ronsley has a super interesting background from software engineer to chef to entrepreneur, and I really like the way that he's brought all of the unique stuff about himself and his CV into some really cool, innovative businesses. Whether you're a podcast believer or not, you will get heaps from Ronsley on how to niche around your particular skills, how to test your market, how to do some shit crazy stuff for the first time in your market. And for the podcasters, there are some great tips from the man who has had some serious podcasting success with Australia's leading health and, I think, entrepreneurship podcast, Bond Appetit, and the newer podcast, Should I Start a Podcast, which discusses exactly that question. So over to it. Welcome to the podcast, Ronsley. It is awesome to have you.
Katie, thank you so much for having me. This is cool.
It's very cool. You know, I don't have that many men on my podcast, so you're joining a very valued few.
Oh, that's different. It's usually the women that are in short supply, but okay, that's awesome. That's great.
It is awesome. And so tell us, like, what would you be up to right now if we were not talking?
What would I be up to? That's a great question. I go by my calendar, so Emma would have put something in there that I would have to pay attention to. And I would look at the calendar and go, oh, that's right. That needs to be done. I don't know. It's probably some creation stuff. It's usually where my focus lies. Either that or sales is my job and my role. And if that doesn't get done, then everyone has no work to do.
I like that. And look, it's the perfect entree into telling us a little bit about you and your business. And I must say, I had a lot of fun stalking you online before this interview because you've had some pretty interesting stuff happen in your career. So can you tell us a little bit about where you've come from and how it is that people come into your vortex these days?
Wow. How long do you actually seriously, I think we'll be here. I think that would be at least a whole podcast. No, I'm giving myself too much credit.
Give us the Cliff's Notes.
Let's do that. So I came to Australia 15 years ago, and I came here to study my master's in software engineering at the time, and I worked as a software engineer for a little while. They paid for me to go and do an MBA degree, and I did that in leadership and psychology. No thought process behind that. Just I found myself leading a huge company one day, and I just they asked me, do you want to upskill? And I said, yeah, let me go ahead and do an MBA. Anyway, there was that changed my life. I saw everything differently. I wasn't born an entrepreneur. If like most people, I suppose, I just saw opportunity everywhere. Going through the MBA program, it allowed me to look at things that I'd seen before and see opportunity in the same very things. And I got a chance to lead a Brisbane office in financial advising after that, which I took up because I just wanted something different and a chance to explore what I had learned through my MBA. And then I opened a restaurant, which was at the time, and I think still was the first Indian Portuguese restaurant in Australia. Learned to become a chef. So I was actually when I learned to become a chef, properly learned to become a chef, started by washing dishes in my own restaurant. And then the restaurant went south. We did service on a Saturday night, and on Sunday the locks were changed, and I was left with a debt of just under $500,000. And I just couldn't go back. Well, I went back and got a job, but I just was not good at, being an employee, and tried that for a while. Went through 5 or 6 different jobs in 4 months, I think. And Then I decided to open my own business. Did that. I did the Uber for chefing. So we had a bunch of chefs that plugged in from one end and a bunch of clients that plugged in from the other end. And we just cooked for people in their homes every week, and we cooked all their meals for them. And that was doing extremely well. I started a podcast to promote that business. Then the podcast started doing really well. And then we created the first podcasting conference in the Southern Hemisphere last year, which was insane. It was probably outside my comfort zone the most. This year we created the first audio marketing agency, and I had to shut down the chef services and go full in to audio. And that's what I do today.
Oh, that's brilliant. Like, there's not many people when you go and look at their LinkedIn profile that kind of starts with tech and then ends up in food and then conferences. I love it. So it's fascinating. But I guess what's at the heart of all of that is, and I've heard you say this as well, is just this desire to bring people together in quite different or innovative ways that often involve food. And I love that everything you do that I'm aware of expresses that. But I guess I just wanted to focus in on the innovation component of what you do, because I think innovation is something that is quite a challenge more and more in the online world to do, or, to stand out from the crowd. Even in podcasting, it's harder and harder to kind of stand out and do something a little bit different. So, like, do you believe this is just a natural talent? Is it a curiosity that you fostered over time? Like, do you have any insights into your own sort of personal process around innovation?
I think that I was always meant to be different. I don't think that that's the case with everyone. I think everyone is different. I think everyone's unique. I think there's a saying that, once you're created, the mold is broken. I believe that to be true. However, I do think I can trace back through my whole life where I was just the guy that was different. However, the word innovation is quite interesting because we all have different definitions of what that actually means. So a lot of people might think that it's very tech. Innovation is purely tech, and it's the future and stuff that we haven't even perceived before. And in some ways that is correct. I think we have done things so much the same way over the last 50 odd years, because we went through the Industrial Revolution, that we don't even challenge our current industries a lot. So I think there's always ways and reasons and parts that people should actually challenge current ways of doing things. I think we don't do that enough. In terms of how to go out and do that, I think just accepting that you're different is the first stage. The next, realizing that you have a very, very particular skill set that no one else on the planet has, and you will be able to help and really help a bunch of people that will absolutely love you for it. And your job is to find something that they will want, find something that you can deliver upon, and just keep doing that, because the last thing you want to do is your clients not value you for what you do. And that happens a lot. And that primarily happens not because the clients are bad. It's because as business owners, we haven't spent enough time figuring out what makes us different, who our people are, and who our peers are. Those three things by far gets neglected the most.
And so then when you first decided to start the personal, or what did you call it, the Uber for chefs, how did you go about kind of identifying, because that's pretty early days in the share economy, I suppose, that you did that, but how did you kind of go about working out if there was demand and how to go about building the business?
So I think, and I believe, actually, I don't think, I believe that starting a business isn't a romantic idea. You have an idea and you go out and start it. I don't believe that. I think that we get caught up in that and then land up $500,000 of debt. I think that our first job from having an idea is to prove product market fit. And I did that with the chef business. I did that with the podcast training. I did that with the conference, and I did that again now with the audio marketing agency. Always go and prove product market fit. Prove that what you're selling people want to buy, and not just say that they want to buy, that they give you money for whatever it is that you're selling, which means there's a genuine need. Chances are there are lots of things that could go wrong. When I first got the idea that I wanted to get more people into podcasting, I would go and tell people or businesses, I would go and say, you need to start a podcast. And they very, very politely told me to off.
Go away.
and then I went, wait a minute, this is so powerful. What's happening here? And then I tried a different tact, and I said, you need to storytell better. And they still very politely told me to go away. And then now, after 2.5, 3 years of doing this, I finally am able to get into a room and say, do you know how every single conversion in your business has happened through a conversation? And then they nod their heads, and I say, what we do is we harness the power of conversation. And that one line or those two lines in itself just change everything. So going back to answer your question, I first went out and figured out with the chef business that whether people actually wanted a chef to be cooking in their homes week in, week out, whether they would put money on the table to go on a 13-week trial run with me. And I set myself a target of getting 5 customers. And as soon as I got 5 customers, I would see if there would be another chef who had spare time, was working part-time, that would join me. And that just kept going from there.
That's brilliant. I love that. I think especially in the online world and circles that I hang out in, I think we can get caught up a bit too much in thinking that, well, if we're passionate about something, we can turn it into a business. And I'm not saying that's not true, but I think the value of testing the market is, beyond valuable. And I mean, you talk a little bit about the message there. You phrased your message that you use now around harnessing the power of conversation. And it's something that I think I can see in stalking you online. Like, you're very good at bringing what you do down to that single message. And it looks really, really, really simple, but I know that it's actually not that simple to actually craft, when you're really coming to trying to phrase what your personal brand is all about. So if you're working with somebody to help define that message, like, what does that process look like for you?
Well, to be honest, Katie, there's again another saying that you sharpen your product on the stone of the market. I think I messed that up.
Something like that.
But it's what your people it's what your people can relate to. It's got nothing to do with me, and I can get really crafty with the words, and I can get a thesaurus out and make no sense, and get really fancy words in there. But at the end of the day, it's what gets you attention. How can the people that you're trying to get to, how can they look at you and say to you, I want to know more? And at the end of the day, a lot of us try and do this as well, which is another mistake I see often, is we try to sell to people who don't even know us, who don't even know what we do, and don't even know why we are having this sales conversation with them. And that's when we come across salesy. That's when we feel really icky from inside, and that's why we hate sales conversations. And then that's just a vicious cycle. It's like asking someone that you've never met here's the key to my room, come with me. Like, doesn't even make sense, right? But somehow when we go to networking events or we meet someone for the first time and they ask us what we do, we get into this whole pitching competition and expect someone to say, oh, you're a cool person, let me buy from you, here's my money. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I love that. that just getting people to want to know more. It's sort of just that first step in that nurturing process, isn't it? I love it. And so you've had, I think, 2 podcasts in your time. There may be another one, but tell me about the role that those 2 podcasts have played in the different businesses that they've supported, or has it been the same role?
Oh, the podcast has been, when you find that 20% of stuff that produces 80% of the results.
Yes, that is the podcast.
To me, that's the podcast. And when you think about all these platforms that people are trying to get involved in, and trying to get these, the attention, the engagement, and the sales from their people, they're trying to get relationships happening. They're trying all this stuff to make happen. And for me, just starting a podcast in just like that made all that stuff go away. So in terms of what role it played, it helped me develop relationships. And we've heard this before. It's not what you know, it's who you know. I think that's a bit flawed. I think it's what you know and who you know that allow you to grow. It allows you to be challenged. It allows you to have connections and access to opportunities that you possibly wouldn't have before. No business, no entrepreneur, and I suppose no business owner is an island, and I don't think anyone should think of themselves that way. I think relationships is the key thing that I've been able to foster and harness, just by having conversations with people that at the end of the conversation, we kind of went, I like you. Let's meet up next time, or let's have another conversation, or sometimes it doesn't even go that far. Sometimes it just, that's that. But a lot of the times there's similar mindsets, similar value set, similar ways of looking at the world, similar, well, not always, but perspectives align. And then you kind of go, I'd like to be friends with you. Mm. For me, that was big. Apart from that, I was able to take a conversation which I've been having since I was a little kid. And I didn't need much practice. Yes, I needed help in getting better at the actual hosting of the show and being a good host. And I believe that it doesn't matter who you have on your show. Your job as a host is to get the story out of your guest. You're not supposed to go and get the guests that are like the most famous on the planet and use their cred to boost your podcast. Your job is to be a host. And I needed a lot of work around that to be a better host. But I've been having conversations since I was a kid. So I just used that to create all my social media collateral, all my images. Every single thing that I've been able to do is just by having conversations.
And I love that you mentioned the craft of hosting, because it's a little bit, I guess it's subjective in a lot of ways. So is there one thing or person in particular that has really helped you feel as though you're honing your craft as a host, or is it just literally practice and runs on the board?
There's always going to be a stage, I suppose, where you look back at your episodes and go, oh my God, I can't believe I did that at one stage. So yes, practice is part of every journey. It doesn't matter what journey you're on. I do think that the biggest change for me happened when I started to listen to my podcast, which I disliked the sound of my voice. And it's no different from anyone else, I suppose. It's not something we're used to hearing, especially in recorded form. So I think for the first 8-9 months, I avoided it as much as possible. But when I started listening to my own show over and over again, I kind of made mental notes on how I could do it better. And I think just from there, I started improving. I think just being aware that you want to improve is a good start.
Yeah, for sure. And so Bon Appetit was the first podcast you started, which was quite a while back now. And then Should I Start a Podcast is the more recent one. How different has the process felt given the sort of rapid growth of the industry over the past year or two?
Well, I had very different things happen to Bon Appetit, which came out of nowhere, really. I think the biggest thing that happened to Bon Appetit was in the first, I want to say 3 months from starting. I actually don't know exactly when it happened because I didn't know it happened. But iTunes took Bon Appetit and put it up on the banner section next to Triple J and ABC Radio. And we were there for at least 5.5 months that I'm aware of. And I think that really helped the people to get the attention that Bon Appetit got at the time. I don't even know where they got the graphics from. They just pulled the graphics from somewhere, I suppose. And it was just there. And I think that allowed Bon Appetit to get the kind of listenership that it has today, that I believe that one act. But I think that one act came from me releasing 3 episodes a week for the first 9 months. I didn't miss 8 o'clock on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I released an episode. And
wow.
Yeah. And then I relaxed and I kind of went to 2 a week. Then I relaxed and went to, and now we're on 1 a week for Bon Appetit. With Should I Start a Podcast? I never look at my numbers. I only look at my numbers if I'm giving a presentation and they say, can you please put a slide in there with your cred on it? And that's when I look at my numbers and I go, oh, I didn't even know when we crossed 1 million listeners. I didn't know when we I was aware when we crossed 2 million listeners, but I don't actively go and look at my numbers because, to be honest, the numbers mean nothing. At the end of the day, the engagement is what counts. With Should I Start a Podcast? I just people were asking me all the same questions. And I was like, well, there's no better way to get the message of how podcasting works for people than actually interviewing other podcasters and talk about their journey. So today, if anyone says, Ronsley, I'd like to start a podcast. Can you help me? And I said, dude, first of all, can you please listen to Should I Start a Podcast? If you can stand me for more than 10 episodes, then we can talk. if you can't stand me, then there's no point. Like, in no point in me getting involved. There's no point in us going through the dance of, is this good for me? Is this right for me or not? You can decide that. And there are so many other people on the planet that are really good at training, and I'm ridiculously bad at training. So I'd prefer if you kind of get your ideas and say, yes, I want to start a podcast, and actually go to someone that's really good at training and kind of get trained there.
Fair enough. And what do you think? I mean, it would be good to talk about the podcast conference next, but in terms of just even since you ran We Are Podcast last year and looking ahead, and it's within the month actually, this year, has the industry, I think it's changed, but we've all got our own perspective on things, but where do you think we're at now in terms of, is it still a good time to start a podcast? Is it still the fantastic platform that I think it is and I think you think it is?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a great platform for people who have a business. I don't necessarily think it's a great platform for someone who is looking so let me rephrase that. So if someone is just starting out and hasn't proven product market fit and is looking at a podcast to solve all their problems, that is a big cross in the box. If someone has been proven product market fit and has customers and has money coming in and going out of their business, a podcast is the way to let it explode. By far, it is the one thing that has allowed any business that I've had to explode, just based on the fact that you create a following around the idea of what your business is. And I've helped quite a few big companies set up podcasts, and every single one of them who have something to sell, in the first. Let's take a couple of examples. I have Jesse Green, Dr. Jesse Green. He's a dentist. He's a business coach for dentists. He started his podcast. and it went live in May or April. It went live in April. By the middle of June, he was oversubscribed. He couldn't take any more customers, and he can directly make a relation or correlation between $80,000 and his podcast. His podcast brought him $80,000, which is insane. In what, 2 and a bit months. The Dent podcast is another one which I helped set up as well, and they I think they're on episode 20 or 21 right now. But I met Glenn the other day, and he said that directly he can relate 60 grand of sales to the podcast, which, when you think about it, is insane for something that you land up sitting at and talking to some random person for like an hour, if that, and those results are amazing.
They are amazing, and I'm very open about telling people that I've had my highest value clients have all found me through my podcast than any other marketing strategy that I've used. So what do you think, like, what would be your hottest Ronsley tip for launching a great podcast in the current environment?
Well, that's awesome. I think it's not about the mic.
Oh, I love that you said that.
It's not about the mic. Don't worry about what mic you want. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Worry about 3 things before you go ahead and worry about the mic and the guests and the name of the show and the website and all that stupid stuff that we get caught up in. 3 things. 1, why you are different and unique and so special to the world. Number 2, who are the people that would value you for being you and your business for doing what it does, and vice versa. Like, you should value them as well. Who would you love to spend time with? Who are your people? Who they really are. Like, when I say who they really are, is not like Jane from Newcastle that has 3 kids. That's not what I mean. I mean, what is Jane's secret fear? What does she care about? What does she want more of and less of? What really makes her tick? Knowing that is number 2. And number 3 is knowing who your peers are. You are the average of the 5 people you hang around with, and there is no mistake that you can make that if you hang around with the wrong people, your results will be different. So those are the 3 things to getting a good podcast done.
Awesome. And so if we want to know more, we clearly need to be at We Are Podcast, the conference in October 2016, and I will be there, and I'm very excited. Tell us a little bit about the conference and what's the sales pitch?
I am really excited about We Are Podcast 2016. I thought we had a great lineup in 2015, but 2016, when I look at this picture, I have the picture right up in front of me right now. I am blown away by the kind of speakers that we managed to get, including yourself. And thank you so much for accepting to come along and speaking at our event. I don't know. I'm very, very grateful, because it's not an easy trek. It's not something that, is I don't know. We're only 2 years in, so we're not a pro blogger. It's an example. I appreciate it so much, and the kind of speakers that we've landed up getting just blow my mind. The cumulative reach of these speakers are in the tens of millions, which is ridiculous. And it's all crafted around monetization and growth, because I know you and me and podcasters in general get asked this very annoying question. That's great, Ronsley. That's great, Katie. But how do you make money? And I decided that this year everything was going to be crafted around that idea of how to monetize and grow, how to make sure that what you have is not just created for podcast's sake. You don't want to, go down, create a podcast, and then 3 or 4 months down the line, decide that it's the wrong one, or the one that needs to be changed, or it's the last 3 or 4 months have been a waste of time. And seriously, we've managed to pull some amazing speakers from all over the planet who have been there, done that, and are amazing in their respective fields, from obviously Facebook groups like yourself, social media. We cover different sorts of social media, to interviewing skills and storytelling, branding, everything in between, I suppose, niching, and creating relationships. It's a great lineup.
Beautiful. I'm so excited, and it is a great lineup. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in it. It is a really, really cool lineup. I'm totally excited. So is it for the person who's already podcasting, or is it for the person who's wanting to podcast and wanting help to get started?
It is for both. Last year we had over 60% of the room who hadn't had a podcast, and it's quite amazing how many of those have actually started a podcast and are going to be in the room this year as podcasters. And there are even a couple of them who are going to be speakers. So that's kind of crazy. It is for both. We've found a balance, I think, for both, in the sense that if you're starting off, if you've just started, or you're an existing podcaster, you get the value of being able to monetize through all these different techniques that a lot of the podcasts in the States are using these days that we don't even have a clue about. If you're not a podcaster and you want to start a podcast, or thinking about starting a podcast, or you're trying to figure out whether it's for you, then you have the opportunity of knowing learning what some of the podcasters will learn a lot later in their journey of already having a podcast. So you start off with the best foot forward, I think. So we found a balance with both. There's some workshops on the 6th as well, for 20 people. In each of those workshops, just to allow someone who is in that stage of, I really want to start a podcast tomorrow, to actually get stuff done and put that into action.
Brilliant. And so I have to ask you, Ronsley, given your background, but will the food be good?
Well, we changed venues this year primarily because the food was bad last year. And I did taste the food at the venue this year. Because I didn't like the food last year. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought the service was bad too. And we went with the new location, which is Mantra Legends on Surfers Paradise, because it came very highly recommended by 3 people that I know and that I tasted the food before.
Awesome. It's so important having good food at a conference.
True. It is true. And also that they care about you and they take care of you, and they take care of the people that I bring there as well. I think that for me, I didn't like the fact that they didn't take care of my people last year.
Well, I'm very excited about it, and I hope that lots of the people listening to this episode come along. How can they find out more about it?
Well, they can go to wearepodcast.com and click on the big button in the center of the screen as soon as they open up with all the speakers. But Katie, you have a special code and a special discount for your people, and I'm happy for you to share that with them.
I do, and I will pop that in the show notes, but my code is KATIEW, KATIEW, to get 25% off tickets, which is totally fab. But thank you, Ronsley. It's been totally fun hearing all about your journey and chatting to you about the conference, and I can't wait to see you there.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this. I really appreciate everything that you do, Katie. Thanks for coming on my show. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I hope that you got a ton from Ronsley's interview. And if you're at all curious about coming to the We Are Podcast Conference, I would so love to see you there. Remember, bit.ly/WAPKT25. And you can read all about the program and the speakers at wearepodcast.com. Make sure you let Ronsley and I know that you heard us here and what you thought of the episode. The best way to do that is on Twitter, because Twitter's cool. And you can catch Ronsley at We Are Podcast and me at Katie T. Wyatt. Till next time, have an awesome week.